a true pleasure for me to be here. I had an uncle called Alec Clegg who was Director of Education here, and I've heard ever since I was that high about the extraordinary people who live in Wakefield. They were very close to his heart, and I was brought up knowing that they were the salt of the earth. You have close by to you a site of international importance. There was a man called Charles Waterton in the 19th century, 1820, around then, who is little known, not only internationally, but shamefully in this country. But he was a great and important figure. If he is known at all elsewhere, it's because he was also a great eccentric figure. I mean, he really was eccentric. He lived in Walton Hall. If you went to visit him, even as an old man, when he was in his 80s, he was climbing trees barefoot just to keep fit. If you went to visit him, he might well have welcomed you by standing on one leg and putting his other foot on the top of his head. He's real eccentric, I tell you. He had lots of eccentricities. But the important thing about him was that he was a great naturalist. He first came to national knowledge by writing a book about South America. But he cared for the natural history of this country. He was the first person in this country, and to my knowledge in Europe, who built a bird sanctuary. It's around Walton Hall. In the 19th century, this part of the world was having a bad time. The Industrial Revolution was poisoning the skies. There was a soap factory that made it impossible for people to breathe. The air was black with fumes. Coal mines were wrecking the countryside. And Waterton decided that natural history, the birds and the bees and the badgers and the foxes and the hedgehogs needed protection. And he built a wall 18 feet high around his park. And anybody could go and visit it, provided they didn't have a gun. And he persuaded people to get hedgehogs and badgers and wild birds and bring them and release them in this park. Walton Park is still there. And the most touching thing, to my mind, about him, was that he recognized that the natural world had a great psychological importance to us. For example, he allowed people who were mentally disturbed, who had been kept in what was then called an asylum, he would allow them to come to Walton Park and watch the ducks and the geese on the pond, the lake of Walton, and gave them a telescope to watch, because he believed it soothed people. He believed it was essential for their well-being. He was a great pioneer. Now, one of the things that this spectacular building has done is to make a really marvelous, beautiful, fascinating museum. And John Whittaker, who looks after that museum, has made sure that one part of it, one gallery, is devoted to what Waterton did and the animals that he preserved by taxidermy. So I congratulate you, because you have a far-sighted government, local government, to build lovely buildings like this at a time when building expenditure of any kind is very difficult. And within this building, there is that wonderful reminder of one of the great men who lived close to this great city in the early 19th century. I congratulate you all very much, and thank you for being here.